We've already been out to Dutch Bros this morning on this cold, rainy Arizona day. And today we're going to share with you our teardown process checklist. So if you're an RV newbie and you want to know the order in which everything should be taken down before you leave so you're safe, nothing gets broken, this is our process.
Brr. Anybody who's not from Arizona is considering us to be a great big wimp.
Oh,
but
no
it's
question.
so cold.
It's like 50. Okay, so let's just kick it off right now with step one. There are a lot of mature RVers that would, the night before, they would tear down their chairs and their rug so that they're better prepared the next morning.
Yes.
Our level of maturity is not quite there yet, so we get to put away wet chairs.
We like to leave it out in the rain.
Yes.
Okay, but some people put their things under the slide when they know it's going to rain. But you really have to be careful of that, because if you have multiple people doing the teardown process, one person could start, boom, bringing in that slide and crunch, crunch, crunch.
Those people are not following a checklist, Trisha, and you will have a checklist after this video. So step one is tear down all the stuff the night before, but there's something else that you should do the day before you leave. So let's kick this off over at the gray and black tank valves.
Well, hello there.
Okay, so if you remember our setup video, you remember that we're at Carefree Regional Park, or Cave Creek Regional Park out in Carefree, Arizona. And this particular park only has water and electric. It doesn't have sewer. And so I'm not hooked up to sewer. But my very first step, the day before we leave, is that I would go into this gray tank valve and I would close it. And being that we travel with 4 people, about 1 day is sufficient for washing dishes and taking showers to create enough water that after I pull the black, I've got all that gray water that's gonna go through the hose and it's gonna rinse it out. That's a far better situation than pulling your black and then having this hose that you get the gist. So the day before, I'll do that. Now, if you're only traveling with a couple, you might not need to pull the gray at all. You could just leave them both closed, take care of this all once when you leave. But in our case, that gray tank needs to be open. So anyhow, so right now I would go ahead and close this, and then the next morning I would come out here and I would pull the black and let that go through. Then I would decide if I need to do a sani flush, and a sani flush is where you connect a hose up inside your rig and it kind of cleans it out and washes. I would do that if I needed to, and then I would pull the gray last and let all that gray water go through. When we first got started, I did the sani flush a little too much. I was all hyper on keeping everything clean. Now I do it only when I think it needs it, or before we're gonna go dry camping. So if I haven't done it in like a month and we're gonna go dry camping for a few days, that's a good opportunity to clean it out. All right, let's go on to step number 2. All right, I got my handy dandy checklist here, and the third thing is, before we disconnect the water, you have to ask yourself how much fresh water you might need. I know a lot of people don't like to travel with fresh water at all. They like to keep the rig as light as possible. That makes sense. We prefer to travel with 1/3 water because we never exactly know what's gonna happen. As you might know if you watch KYD on a regular basis, we don't make reservations. So if our plans change, I wanna have enough water for dry camping or anything we might have. So I would go inside and I would check the gauges to see how much water we have, and then I would fill to 1/3 before I disconnect. So that's just a good reminder to assess how much water you might need. And now it seems like this would be a great time to remove the electrical because we're already out here doing this stuff anyway. But if you remember in the setup video, I like to operate the slides while I'm still connected to power whenever possible. So now we're gonna bring in the slides and up the stabilizers, and then we will disconnect the electrical. So let's go ahead and do that. How's it going in here?
It's going well. Packing everything up. Couple things. First of all, I love these because when people come over, they can't see all my dirty dishes. It's fantastic. But I like to store them down here when we're underway because heaven forbid, if this were to get knocked and we had the water pump on, water would literally cascade off of here onto the floor. So I've set up a nice little area to store them while we're underway under here. The other thing is, sometimes when we were on a bumpy road, this has happened to us once before, it bumps out a little bit and then it crashes down. You don't want to break these. These are really nice.
And you say underway because this is a land yacht? Because we're boating?
Yes, this is the land yacht.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, the other thing that we have is this awesome silverware caddy. I love this thing. I have all my essential tools. I have my silverware. It usually sits over here by the stove. And then when I'm done, I have dirty dishes in here that I'm trying to hide. But when I'm done, I put a little towel down in there and I just store it right here so it doesn't tip over or anything like that.
Sweet.
And then make sure all of your countertops are completely cleared off, and then do it another time right before you bring the slide in, because you don't want someone else to come right behind you, put something down, you close it, and then it gets stuck in the slide when you go to open it up.
That's why we separate our roles.
Yes.
And you're responsible for the slides.
Yes.
And I see you already brought in the boys' slide.
I brought in the boys' slide. For us, we have double slides, so this is the only place I can store things. So we keep the trash here, and then my little stackable stools, I just keep them right here. We have to make sure there's nothing in this way and nothing in this way. So,
okay,
good.
Cool.
So I've already brought in slide number 3, and of course I checked the electrical outlet, make sure there's no extension cords, nothing going on in there, and the floor is clean, so I brought that one in. Now I need to make sure that none of these are open and that these are clicked closed, so that way we don't just crunch them when we bring the slide in. And these guys, I need to store them. Sync, perfect. Okay, so now we need to make sure that this slide can come in without anything in its way. We're gonna click all those doors closed, make sure that nothing is down on the ground, and we can bring the slide in. Slide number 1. So now as I bring this in, I'm making sure I have my eyes on these hot spots to make sure that there's nothing in the way. And that's the wrong way. Okay, last slide to bring in.
Hey, wait a second. Hey, that's not funny. Not funny, not funny.
So for our rig, this is when we would bring in the awning as well, because once this is closed, we can't get to this control panel. So, awning retract. We probably should have closed the door.
Well, probably should have brought the awning in yesterday. If only we had like a checklist or something to follow so that we did these steps in order, so it goes so much smoother.
Nice and wet.
Let me get the water off of here.
Okay, wait. Lights out. Bing. Close the door. You're done with your coffee?
Yeah.
Okay, the other things that we've been sure to close are the vents. There are vents up here, and there's a vent in the kids' room. Our fan, what's that thing called? Fantastic fan?
Theoretically.
Automatically closes.
Yeah, with the rain.
Super nice. But this one does not. Okay, vertically challenged. We have our bathroom door locked. We're gonna lock this bathroom door. Okay. Lights out. Windows closed. Done.
This would also be a really good time to check to make sure your water pump is off and a faucet gets turned on and you had water in your fresh tank. You could arrive to an RV park with a flood.
We have seen rigs go down the road with gushing water out the back.
Yes.
We were like, hey!
Yes.
So,
and they're like, hi!
And we're like, no!
So now we have that done, it's time to bring up the stabilizers, and it's important to bring the stabilizers up before you raise the tongue jack, because if your rear stabilizers are down and you raise the back, you're gonna break your rear stabilizers. So this is one of those things in the checklist that has to be done in order. All right, let's go to the back. Okay, just like I said in the setup video, if you don't have electric switches for these, mine currently are broken, they're gonna get fixed at the dealer, then you can get a cordless drill to just do that. But I like doing things manually. That's a serious workout. Okay. Now I'm not gonna put the chairs where they go right here because they're wet, because we were distracted. So I'm gonna go put them in the back of the truck. Even wet, you can see why we like this so much, because it's just so much easier to negotiate. Okay, so now that we've got everything put away and the stabilizers are up, let's go close the door, and I'm gonna bring this in, and notice that this goes this way. We're gonna get a new one of these. In fact, I'm going to put on bike handlebar tape, and I'm gonna do like the old school leather tape that wraps around back when bike racing was cool, like Greg LeMond, Miguel Indurain. Remember those days when the Tour de France was like super fun to watch? Anyway, I'm gonna put some black bicycle tape right here and get rid of this. But anyway.
But you don't want it going the other way because?
Well, a couple reasons. One is the slide. It should pull forward, but you don't want that. Anyway, this is just kind of a nice extra safety precaution with the door. These RV locks are fantastic, but you'll notice when you close your door like this, sometimes you need an extra little push. Okay, cool. Now that the slides are in, we can disconnect our electrical, which I think I mentioned in the setup video when it was a little bit warmer that this cord was easier to negotiate. Remember I was complaining about how heavy these 50-amp cords are? Well, look at how difficult it is now. It's not near as fun to manage. That's why I'm considering one of those things that it'll roll up underneath the rig so I don't have to deal with this anymore. Okay, all right, now that our electrical is away and our stabilizers are up, dry my hands, now we can operate the tongue jack, because oftentimes if you have a ball hitch, the tongue jack will need to come up for the ball to go under. And that's what I was saying, you can break your rear stabilizers if they're not up. So it's important that the stabilizers are up before we disconnect. Now in this case, this was a level sight, so I happen to know that this should all be set up. And with the Hensley, you really don't want to mess with it in between disconnecting and hooking up, because it gets out of its previous shape. If it's not messed with, and all you have to do is go up and down, it's pretty easy to just connect to the next time. So let's connect and move on. That's about good. One of the things that you figure out right away when you're hooking up all the time is you get these little dongles. I got these at, I guess they're called carriage bolts. I got these at Tractor Supply, and I got nice big ones so I can clip on. And then I got this little guy right here for the brake line. Put that on, I have a separate dongle for it. Connect the 7-way pin. By the way, in Alaska, we had issues with the 7-way pin on a rainy day, connecting and disconnecting and connecting while we were driving. Of course, if this isn't connected, you lose your trailer brakes. And the overwhelming comment, which couldn't be more accurate on in the comments, was to put electrical grease on this, and it secures the connections between all of this stuff. So I haven't done that yet because we're back in Arizona and it doesn't rain here. But that's obviously a joke.
And we have liftoff.
You see that line right there that says stop? That's there for a reason. On our previous trailer, sometimes I would get a little distracted and I was just sitting here raising up the thing and I would wait for it to go clunk. It's a worm gear inside there, and it can only clunk so many times before the worm gear stops working, and then you have to replace this entire thing, which is a pain. So don't go beyond that line, but I tend not to go beyond right here anyway, so it's not an issue. Now that we're connected, we need to remove the chocks. And if you haven't seen our setup video where I talk about chalking, there's a link. Go check that video out too. Super important. Even more important is to do it in order. Pull one down and pull that one out. There we go. Okay, last step on the list is a walk around. I cannot tell you how important a walk around is, and every once in a while I'll forget to do it, and those are the times that we have a problem. I've seen people pull away from an RV park where they're still connected to their electrical. It's a very expensive mistake. I've seen people pull out of RV parks with their awning completely out, and that's an expensive mistake. We've pulled out once with our slide out. There's a lot of different things that need to be checked, and what I do is I leave that door in the driver's seat and I walk this way. I go around the trailer, in front of the rig, and back in, and I have kind of spots that I always look at. So let's just do that together, and then we'll be good to go. I take obviously a quick look at the truck tires while I'm walking by there and make sure that everything looks good there in the pattern. The big one here is that to make sure that the 7-way is connected, to make sure that the chains are on, to make sure that these pins are in. When I was in Seattle and I shared that I almost dropped the trailer, I found out that a lot of people didn't have this pin on their hitch. So the hitch ball came right out of the receiver. So that's another thing to check.
And people forgot to put their tongue up.
Oh yeah, and then there are other people that forgot to put this down. As you notice, I have this little clasp. This is a nice little reminder that that is to always be closed. And you can pick those little guys up at AutoZone. Another
thing is people forget to put this up.
Oh my gosh, the tongue jack, yeah.
Yes, and then they cruise away
and they break their tongue jack, okay? Make sure that I've got latches there. Make sure that the windows are closed. Make sure the slide is in. The electrical cap is closed. Probably one of the biggest areas are the tires. And if you remember that, you know, the reason we're going to the dealer is because we have a tire issue, because we have potentially an axle or bearing issue. It's not only important to check the air pressure. I have TPMS with these guys right here, so I don't have to check them manually. I can check them as soon as I get into the truck. But when you inspect the tires, it's not just good enough to look on the outside. You've got to look on the inside of the tire and manage the wear. I can't believe I went so long with my rear left passenger side tire getting lower and I never noticed. So I'm definitely doing a better job checking the wear. Make sure the third slide is in, and then I make sure that the clasps on the outdoor kitchen are good.
This has actually opened while underway.
Oh, look at that. It's not shut.
Not shut. So this is actually opened before while we were driving. A little bit scary.
Yes.
And now we're good.
Same tire and wheel check on this side. Check the wear inside and out. Make sure that the handle is closed and the door is latched, awning is in. And close this. Wouldn't be a bad idea to just go check that one more time, because that is perhaps the most important part of the walk around. And then I look at anything else around the truck. Take a nice little look at the bugs on the front. And we're good to go, yes?
Brr, let's go!
Okay, there you have it. That's our tear down checklist video for RV newbies, or anyone else for that matter.
Yes.
And if you want a printable of this checklist, just go to keepyourdaydream.com/teardown and you can get everything there. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, because we release a new video every Sunday.
And welcome.
Yeah, and welcome. Secret Season 6 is going to be starting here soon.
Yes.
After we do some modifications. And if you want to catch up on the channel, we've done 5 seasons. So we've got playlists.
Mexico, USA, national parks, Canada. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes. All right, that is it for this video. We hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.